Now, of course, as all fans of Charlton Athletic will know, this season it's League One for them, relegated from the Championship last season. But of course, off the pitch, absolute chaos reigns, not for the first time. So can we bring them any good news tonight? We're going to be joined now by my colleague Ben Ransom. Ben, good evening to you. I know you're right across this, Ben. What have you got for us?
Well, Jim, as far as Charlton fans are concerned, I think it's the news that they've been waiting for. Essentially, there was a court hearing in Manchester held remotely today, and the hearing was effectively to decide whether Paul Elliott, you remember that name as the man who the club themselves announced was going to be the new owner back in June, he was trying to get an injunction against the sale of the club to any third party. Now, the third party wasn't mentioned in court because it was not part of the evidential bundle, but the third party we know, we've had him on Sky Sports News, is Thomas Sandgaard. He's the US-based Danish businessman who's been looking to try and do a deal for Charlton over the last few weeks. Now, there was a wrangling, and it boiled down to essentially when the agreement with Paul Elliott was put into place, when it was signed by both parties, and when essentially, and whether or not that agreement was still held, given that he failed the EFL's owners and directors test. Now, the legal arguments went on in court today, and it was a hugely significant day and a late court hearing as well. I mean, some 200 people were in the public gallery, squeezed into a virtual online gallery. At one point, it meant that the judge himself couldn't even get in to hear the hearing because he was stuck in the lobby alongside, would you believe it, Paul Elliott. So they had to reset. It started an hour later than planned. But I think the importance of this decision and this moment is showed by the fact that the judge himself, he was even prompted as we got through the first half of the evidence at around 4:30, which, as you'll know, Jim, from covering court cases yourself, once we get to 4:30, traditionally, that's when there's a pretty strict cut-off time. But the judge ploughed on. He went on for another hour. He went on for more than an hour in the end. In fact, we didn't get the eventual judgment until 6:45, would you believe, in the evening, when ultimately he decided that, having looked at all of the evidence, that ultimately he was not going to grant the injunction. And the reason he gave was essentially because he felt that if he had granted that injunction, first of all, there was no guarantee that Paul Elliott would be successful in his appeal against the EFL's decision to effectively disqualify him as an owner. But also, it was part of the process there was the fact that he looked at the wider context, the fact that Charlton Athletic and the good that the club does in the community, and that potentially without fresh investment, the very future of the club, the consequences were very, very real, and the future of the club was at risk. And that echoes what we've been told here on Sky Sports News by the Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust in recent weeks, who feared themselves that this could be the next Bury, to the point where one of their own board members, Lauren Creamer, she was effectively acting as counsel for the defence. She temporarily resigned her position on the Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust board to represent Panorama Magic today. They have essentially been told today they are free to sell their shareholding. 65%, remember, they own of the club. Matt Southall maintains 35%, but as part of that agreement, there is a drag-along right whereby if there's an agreement for Panorama Magic to sell to a new investor, Matt Southall's shares go along with that. That agreement, I'm told by Thomas Sandgaard tonight, he's lined up, he's put the documents in front of everyone that needs to see them. He's hoping to have an agreement completed and finalised by the end of this week. And that would be a hugely significant moment for Charlton. And we can forget the months, the years of protest, all the way back to, well, past Roland Duchâtelet. We had the occupation of the boardroom a couple of weeks ago. We saw the pigs flying, didn't we, onto the pitch in protest against Duchâtelet. And you can go all the way back to when Charlton fans mobilised in the early 90s to set up the Valley Party to try and get themselves back to their home and back to their own stadium. So it looks certainly from Charlton fans and those I've been speaking to as though it's good news. There's jubilation around SE7 tonight. And in particular, there's real hope that Thomas Sandgaard can complete his takeover deal and get it finalised this week.
And Ben, I think the significance here is Sandgaard can find a pathway into the club and get on with what needs to be done before a ball is kicked in anger in this new season. Ben, are you still with me? You got me? No, well, I think we've lost Ben. We'll go back to him, but in essence there, you heard the story tonight that now Thomas Sandgaard, a way looks pretty much clear for him into Charlton Athletic after not just months but years of wrangling behind the scene. It's the news that Charlton fans will be pleased to hear, I'm quite sure, tonight. Back here.